Greetings, friends. Today, we may say, is our first session of our upcoming 3-series webinar. It's a set of video meetings which we'll be having together. We're not going to jump immediately into this practice and to start doing something. In today's meeting, it's very important for us to understand what are we dealing with and why are we here. Why do we even want to do interpersonal work if we are so used to, during the course of our lives, blaming our external reality for everything that happens to us? It is important to understand and figure out how in our society the accepted norm to think is that there is an external reason, a problem, which causes a consequence of my inner worry. Then if we're going to live our lives based on this commonly accepted form of reality, if this is going to be our axiom that external problems penetrate inside of ourselves, then we are not going to be able to do any inner work. So inner work is only possible if we change the reason and consequences around, and the reason is my inner sick head, with which I want to work with and change those neural networks which have been formed during my early childhood years. They have formed a deep groove of autopilot mode, which thereafter, due to their chemical reactions, often autopilot mode, create my certain destructive set of actions. What I mean is not the external reality or somebody's actions that's causing my misery and problems, but completely the opposite. My inner state creates the resulting problems in my external reality. My own problems, the problems in other people's lives, in the surrounding environment, etc. It's important to understand that the reason is the basis of our work. Reason and consequence. It is important for us to change these two around. Previously, we thought that the reason is something external, outside of us, and the consequence is something that happens inside of us. In reality, it is important to understand that it actually works completely opposite. Firstly, something inside of us creates that consequence which happens in our outer reality. If we are still resisting this realization and we have no intent in even accepting that this might be truth, then this inner work is not possible, and you should actually just drop out of this webinar right away. If you still feel that the outer reality is messing you up and causing your suffering, then we cannot go anywhere with this training. Yeah, we cannot carry on moving forward without this realization. This is going to turn into some cheap psychological game which is very fashionable in the New Age movement, New Age spiritual movement, to proclaim as truth. It will be like in traditional psychology that I have placed myself into the suit and placed myself into certain borders of our societal norms, which makes me fit in with everything else, and my inner reality then settles in and all is hunky-dory. This is what the traditional psychology is doing. It tells us to make ourselves fit in into the certain borders of social norms. Then you're going to start feeling much, much better. And the New Age movement tells us that we are going to dress in white clothes and rise above all of this and just look at the whole thing from right above the bird's eye view. We keep on stubbornly repeating that this does not relate to us at all. Yes, we are part of society, but it's all in the past. It's not what's paining inside of us, which is the same pain that overwhelms our entire society. It's either something that's linked with various forms of escape from our inner state, or various forms of molding ourselves into new social frameworks. Then in both cases, it will be just a continuation of various forms of escapism. Escape and nothing else. run from the inner pain that's happening within me. Always run. And never actually take the time to stop and see what is actually happening within me. No, no, it's not with me. It's with external reality, and that is why I'm feeling so bad. No, no, it's me feeling horrible, which is causing my external reality to worsen and make myself feel even more horrible. This is the starting point, and it's the basics, 101. We cannot even look at the law of polarity and all of its mechanics from which actually occurs our entire internal conflict which we experience on a daily basis, which creates continuous inner swinging on the scales of oppositions and inner conflict. The polarity in itself is a difficult concept to understand, and we will be spending much time on this important subject during our upcoming masterclass. We need to figure out how we continuously look for the antipod opposition towards something we believe in, with which we have a continuous war on. We transform it into a battle with the external, and again, we do not understand how we create inner anxiety, our unsettling feeling, and inner discomfort, and at the end of the day, our Great Depression. So I'm just going to repeat myself. First, we realize that the reason is actually within us, and therefore the consequences ricochet on all of our external relationships. The reason is the feelings which I generate from my programs, the feeling of deep discomfort and permanent fear. Therefore, my feelings birth my actions, very certain actions which are the consequences and the result of my inner state. And these actions, therefore, then create various forms of external conflict. But the conflict is actually on the inside of us. It's duality, part of polarity. So let's just summarize what I've been talking about. We are dealing with the most complex internal mechanisms which have been stamped and imprinted into us and are working in autopilot mode. If we do not realize how the autopilot mode is working, we cannot do anything with our state or with our life. Therefore, the only thing we can do in this case is to slowly kill ourselves with neuroleptics, alcohol, drugs, weed, and basically kill ourselves slowly. So it's the shortening of our life step by step every way and bringing the death process much sooner. There is no other choice. However, if we do want to flourish, we've got to look inside of ourselves to understand what is really going on inside us. So before we start the inner transformative practical work and any inner transformation, you need to say goodbye to the illusion that it is going to be some quick fix, 15 minutes, pop culture, and out you go the other end. Therefore, if we're still looking for some magical ways or wand to transform our inner reality, I mean, internet is overpumped with numerous amounts of promises claiming that you can transform yourself within minutes. Everything you have been forming your entire lives. All of this has been formed our entire lives and has created a myriad of neural networks and connections in our consciousness, and within 15 minutes we can turn it around. Yes! So if you're looking for some form of magic pills, unfortunately you came to the wrong place. Definitely not here. Here we're going to in this work, we are going to take matter apart, first into cells and then the atoms, and then we're going to look at every step of the way deeper and deeper to see how the processes and networks have been formed. So we're going to split it up into the tiniest of details. This is the type of work we have to do in order to look into our programming, which happens on autopilot mode, not in time and space, but really in the moment. So, in order for us to freeze a moment and to unwrap it step by step to see how it was formed, It's not an easy work, but incredibly fascinating and interesting. It will turn around and come back with really awesome mindful state without any bull or exaggeration, just deep, graceful state. It will unravel gently, step by step. Let's go on this journey together. And before we start to unpack the mechanisms from which forms our permanent suffering state, which we carry throughout our lives, feelings and emotions which accompany us every single day of our lives from morning until nighttime, which are very much linked with fear and have been formed into an autopilot mode, which we are not aware of how they actually work. Before we realize and understand how these autopilot modes work, we need to figure out how they actually have been formed. How they play like a stuck record over and over and over again inside of us is insignificant at this point. In the beginning, we need to understand how this has been formed within us in our childhood years, especially early childhood development years, and formed and imprinted into emotional clusters. For now, at least, we need to make a surface level observation of our lives in order to understand this. It doesn't matter in what country and what time has the person been born, because at the end of the day, the same programs are stirring up inside of all of us. Thinking that it is my personal pain which I drag throughout my entire life, in reality, it is our collective pain. The programs are all the same. So when we say that this individual is carrying his own burden, it's an illusion. It's not true. When we're going to unpack the root of pain, we're going to see that it's the same in everyone. So if we just discuss it just on a surface level, we need to understand that from the early childhood years, everyone is formed in the system of appraisal and marks. The parents, on the other hand, are not doing this on purpose in order to mess up their own child. You're good, you're bad, in order to cause the pain. No, they're doing it unconsciously because they have been formed in the same system of coordination and laws from the very early childhood years. So therefore, they don't understand the consequences of the appraisal structure system, and therefore no evil is intended here at all. But even without bad intent, the transmission of this message over and over again towards future generation has happened unconsciously. And in order to stop the transmission of this message, the message of pain and fear over and over to our future generations, we need to unpack, unravel, and unwrap this message of pain in order to understand what does it consist of. And as I said earlier, it consists of appraisal. When a child gets born, every action he or she takes, their parents unconsciously appraise and judge them for everything they do. What you have done here is good, and what you have done here is bad. When the mother says, this is good what you have done, any good action, as a rule, it is understandable and resonates with my own wish. So if I say, well done boy for cleaning up here, I say this because it is comfortable for me. It is profitable for my time to say that because I've just tidied up in the room 30 minutes ago and now it's going to stay like that. So for me, it is good and comfortable and profitable that the child is not going to cause chaos in the room. This is not a very good example, but just for the simplicity's sake. So why am I constantly giving a praise to my child? This is good because it creates comfort for me. And when the child takes out, let's say, a whole box of Lego out just so he can start his creative play process, if I'm an unconscious mother, I will say, no, 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 this is not good, and without understanding what is standing behind this negative put down of my child. It was this simple pushing down and judging my son for taking out his toys. I kill the creator, the investigator and the researcher in him instantaneously. Because during my childhood years, I was appraised for doing the right thing. How mommy said to me, the correct way. And like this, it's not the right way. It's not right because I need to tidy up once again. Once again, this is a very primitive example, but what we need to understand that the child is step by step every way is slowly killed. The creator within him or her is completely destroyed because when he plays and does some creative process, he is always judged for doing that. And when he is sitting like a good little boy and not making any mess and not moving left and right too much, then he is appraised, what a good little boy. And thus, which means that the child will not be punished and therefore he will be good. So if I'm a little child, I form a belief that inaction is good, or doing what an adult tells me is always good and it's the right thing to do. And on the other hand, to do what I really love, what is interesting to me, is bad and is punishable. So the system of coordination based on appraisal, wherever you go, whether it's in school, whether it's actions, whether it's circumstances, means this is good and this is bad. Appraisal is therefore when we label on any circumstance and any action good and bad, a permanent imprinted stamp. This is how polarity forms. The dualism in our consciousness as opposition is formed from this system of coordinates. It's the most primitive layer. This is good and this is bad. If you are inactive, you are good, and if you do what you want, it's bad. So the system of coordinates of judgment, punishment, and appraisal, praise. Now it is permanently stabilized. If I'm talking from the child's mind, it is permanently ingrained and imprinted into the child's consciousness. This happens so early in childhood's years and carries on their entire life. So to be able to see it from the outside and to realize what hell I have actually been formed in, that my feet and my arms are tied and I cannot be the curious, creative and inquiring me. From the side, I cannot see it because I have been formed inside of this. So to be able to see it from the side of how it will impact my life and what terrible consequences it will have, of recreating boring over and over and over life scenarios just in order to be agreeable so I can be appraised by others. And we know about appraisal, it is very, very relative. Relative to who? Relative to whoever it is profitable or comfortable for. From now on, I'm going to spend my entire life rushing towards some unreal peak just so I can get an appraisal from someone else. It's going to be easier to draw this. So here is an axis of coordinates where I'm from now on is constantly swinging on the scales, completely doomed because I'm unconsciously constantly judging myself as bad or as good, without realizing that this whole thing is the same thing, it's one problem. They're the same things. So the more that I judge myself as bad, so although I'm an old adult now, in my head constantly I'm hearing a voice of my parent. This is bad. You're a bad person. I'll give you a bad mark. And this is good. You're great. And the more that I judge myself on the negative side, the more I want to prove to the world that I'm good just to get an appraisal. The more that I'm worn out by the heavy weight of automatic self-judgment, of not being good enough, of being a bad person, the more I'm self-judging myself, and self-judgment is guilt. I hate myself. I'm a nobody. I'm a piece of shit. I hate myself. On the other side, the need to try and get approval and appraisal from others because I'm good increases. I'm totally doomed to be torn, trying to figure out what type of nobody am I, or who am I, and what am I, and this creates this unseen spiral throughout my whole life, which, like a pendulum, swings higher and higher into this internal conflict. And therefore, the more that I am claiming and affirming that I'm a genius, I'm good enough, I'm awesome, I'm great, I'm incredible, and the more horrible my situation actually becomes, because all of this affirming is actually happening because I deeply hate myself, because I'm feeling a huge feeling of guilt. So on this side, I'm completely convinced that I have no right to be on this planet. I'm a total pest. I just keep on hurting everybody and I do everything wrong. And because this is such a scary place to be, the subconscious is looking for saving maxims or proving that I have the right to exist. So to realize it as a problem where my entire life I've spent trying to figure out whether I have the right to exist or I don't have the right to exist. Am I even enough for this or that? Am I good or am I bad? Now, therefore, I cannot even realize and figure this out within myself. And if I cannot figure this out within myself, then I cannot do anything with this situation. I will then keep on running from here to there on this worn out, repeated trajectory. Somewhere there, behind the horizon, is some unfathomable great height from which one day I will sit upon and look down and feeling great above everyone else. And now I can say all of my dreams come true. And only then will I feel calm, peaceful, and relaxed. But the trap is that I didn't acquire that calm, mindful state. In fact, I deeply hate myself, and this peak is the dualism conversation between myself and I. So I think that I'm over here, and that is why I run over there. It's the trap of dualism, which is polarity. I'm a nobody, and that is why I'm great. I hate myself, and that is why I stream over there. It's not really the dialogue we have inside of our head. What I mean is,
I'm not good enough, поэтому I'm not enough, а сейчас I'm enough.
so this
Да,
dialogue
этот
inside of
диалог
our
с
heads, we're
собой.
not necessarily
Мы не
speaking
обязательно
through
проговариваем,
and
мы осознаем,
realize
что
that
это
I
значит
am
быть enough,
enough because I
что
think
это
I'm
значит
not good enough.
работать
No, we're
над
not
собой.
really having this
Мы не
dialogue inside of our
проговариваем
heads,
этого,
but our
но мы
entire lives
все,
are
всю жизнь
spent
идем к
chasing,
этому
trying to
достижению.
figure this out
И
within
особенно
ourselves.
ярко это
This is
видно,
clearly seen
когда
when
у
the
человека
amplitude
просачивается
of duality is
дуализм
swinging
в
higher and higher, resulting in
расстоянии
split
системы.
personality. This is already in itself a splitting of your
Я
personality.
ничтожество,
I am a jerk.
ничтожество.
A jerk is ничтожество in Russian,
И
and that is why
униженное.
I'm great. So I'm already entangled
То
in the
есть
system of
я все равно
hierarchy,
вплетен
and
в
therefore
систему
I need
иерархии,
to
мне
end up
важно
there
быть
because
оказаться,
I
потому
have a
что
belief
я верю,
that I
что
need to
мне
be
нужно быть
great.
великим.
So if
То
I
есть
don't
если я
say
не
to
говорю себе,
myself
что я
that I
великий, то
am
я говорю
great, I
себе, что я
definitely
должен быть
think
великим.
that I need to be
И
great.
когда у
When one's
человека уже
amplitude of polarity starts
очень сильно
increasing higher
амплитуда
and
полярности
higher,
работает
there
таким образом, что
forms a
в
sort of
подсознании
a
как
shutter
заслонка
screen
такая
inside the
создается,
subconsciousness.
и это
It is then medically
называется
diagnosed as splitting of
диагностировка,
personality,
поговорить,
although we
когда у нас у
all
всех
have a split
данные
personality if we are in
полярные,
polarity and are
растерзаны
torn by
личности, это
duality. It's nothing
электродинамические
else than
масштаба.
that. So if
Так
I'm
вот,
having this
когда
internal
я провожу
dialogue that
диалоги
I'm
с
a
собой,
schmuck,
я
no, I'm
ничтожество,
great,
или
no, I'm a
все-таки
schmuck,
великий,
no,
или
I'm
все-таки я
great,
ничтожество,
no, I
нет,
think
это
I'm
уже
definitely a
великий,
schmuck, no, I'm definitely great.
то
When this dialogue eventually
уже
reaches the point where I don't even
когда
realize that I
я
am the
совсем не
same
осознаю себя,
person,
что я
then
одно
we
существо,
are diagnosed
то
as
это вот
somebody that has
диагностировка
a split
раздвоения
personality.
личности.
And
И
when a person has
в
a split
раздвоении личности
personality, he can
человек
often switch
часто
on the
может
television
включать телевизор,
and they hear the
и ему
presenter
слышится,
talking
что
to them
кто-то говорит о
in
том,
their
что прямо
name
по
and
имени ему
surname and
обращаются и говорят:
telling them
великий
that they are a
человек,
great
великий,
person
муж
and that the
Александр,
world needs them.
ты
You
просто
haven't yet realized how
достаточно
great
своих
you
вещей,
are,
пока не
but time will come and you will still realize that the world is awaiting for you. You are incredibly important. Those entities over there that neither you or nobody else can see are waiting for you. You're the axis of the earth. This is pre-schizophrenia state. In schizophrenia, we have a third person who comes and saves us. Here, we're having a dialogue with ourselves. First, I'm this person, and then I'm this person. Here I'm a schmuck, here is I'm great, but it's important to know that all of this dialogue happens from I am personal. In schizophrenia, here is I am and here is a third person which I have imagined and created. So this is how these mechanisms work. Therefore, it is super destructive for a human being to be raised on a system of appraisal. We are a cosmos born into a human body. It is impossible for us to carry over this ugly and deformed baggage of a warped out paradigm without it having tremendously dramatic and destructive consequences on our entire life. A human being does not even realize that when he is praised and told that he is some great human being, it's just as equally degrading as if you would say you're a horrible schmuck. You see, he or she do not realize that it is equally just as degrading as if you would say, you're horrible, you're not good enough, you haven't done this correctly, do this right. So he thinks that when he gets an appraisal, he feels a relaxation and feels much better. But in reality, the suffering just increases. At the deeper level, he realizes that it is just as equally degrading because he's not some dog that somebody can just give some crumbs off the table and say, oh, now you're a good, well-trained puppy. Well done, boy. Thus said, a human being who has been raised on the system of coordinates based on appraisal is always suffering, no matter whether his mark is -1 or +1. It doesn't matter what mark it is. The human being is racing towards constantly being appraised and positively judged without actually realizing that in itself it is bringing the ever-growing pain within this deformed and ugly paradigm. So the question does not stand whether I can adapt within this messed up paradigm and live like everything is hunky-dory when I end up at the high place here. No, this is not the case. Even if I end up right on top of the world, I will still hate everybody else because I will use them to affirm myself. Therefore, we are within a hierarchical system. Whether we put it like this or whether we put it like this, it doesn't matter. We're still split in the duality of the hierarchy. Thus, we will keep on suffering within the duality for as long as we are living within a hierarchical polarity duality paradigm. No matter how this is called, there are so many words, but in reality, it's all so simple. It's really very simple. It's the system of appraisal. An appraised human being can never be truly happy. And to say this to ourselves is extremely scary. Let's try and think, why is there so much resistance and aggression towards this information? In my trainings, people have cried, they have laughed, they have screamed, they have even run away because they realize that they're living within this system. So then what can I do with this? Everything is locked within this. Everything is based on hierarchy and polarity. Everything is based on opposition and the kick we get when we suppress the others. So I'm either the suppressed one at the bottom hating everybody else above me, or I'm the one on top hating everybody below me because I am just affirming myself by standing on their heads. And when we realize that this is a collective disease and to try to work with the external factors to try and figure this out, it's completely impossible. Therefore, if the sick in the head me is going to try and create an eco-settlement or an eco-village or some new paradigm without realizing that I'm living within the sick paradigm, I will just recreate the
То есть
same
я скажу, что
broken
это другая
system. And if I
система, но
say
это
that
опять
this
наша
is going to be
система.
the
А если
new
это система,
system,
то
it
это
is still a
опять концепт.
system.
Плохо и
And all
хорошо.
systems are based on
Воспитательный
good
процесс,
and bad
как
duality of
я,
polarity.
я
It's
крутую,
basically,
чтобы
I'm
у
going
нас
to
было
become like another
все.
educator telling people what's the
То
right
есть
thing
это
and
будет
what's the
опять то же
wrong
самое,
thing.
что
And it's
коммуникация
the
детей.
same system
Я
that I
буду
will
так
carry over to
воспитывать
my
своих
own
детей,
children
я
once again.
заставлю их
I will
чувствовать
force my children to
это
suffer from
поведение, это
appraisal and
настроение, и
praise.
я
I
заставлю
will
их быть
thus turn my
рабами
children to be
этого
the slaves of
устремления,
this movement,
бояться
the
якобы
fear
быть
to be
униженным
humiliated,
и
and the
стремиться
race
быть
towards
победителем,
someone that is
смотреть
so
македонию
great at the
как
top of the world,
подобие
someone that society
и
deeply
оцененный как
admires and looks
значимый,
up to.
великий.
And
И
this
мне это
nightmare will never
очень
end. It
закончится.
will only end
То есть он
when we start
закончится
to
только тогда, когда
integrate
мы начнем это
this.
интегрировать.
And the
И
only
тогда
thing
мы
that will
начнем
work here is
делать
the
практику,
deep inner process of
то есть чистить
alternation, where
это
in your
такое
consciousness you jump from here to here, from here to here,
глубокий
from here to
песок
here,
сознания
very
уходит.
quickly.
Мы
After doing
таким
this practice for a
образом
while, you will
потихонечку
start to slowly realize
шаг за
that
шагом
polarity is
обнаруживаем,
not one
что
or the
полярность
other. It's one
это
and the
не
other at the same
одно
time
и
is the
другое,
very
а
same
это одно и
thing,
то же. Что это
creating
идет
this
и
eroded
более
valley of
облачно. То есть
pain
это
within
как
ourselves. It's like two
берега одни
sides of the
и
river
две реки, которые
which
в нас
is absolutely rotting
копошится,
inside of us, creating
гнет
this
и издает вот это
horrible
чудовищное
passing
зловоние, как
stench,
разрыв
ripping a
внутри
tear within our
вот этой
chest area. We
части,
always
где у нас
say that
всегда
my heart
болит,
is
душа
paining, but
болит,
it's
как мы
actually what we
говорим,
mean is
сердце болит.
this area.
Потому
Because we're
что
being
мы
torn
разъемлены как
by the
бы
dualism of polarity
полярностью,
and
дуализмом и
permanent
перманентным
competitive mode we live
соперничеством
in.
с самими
This war
собой
firstly happens
и
within
с миром.
ourselves
И как
and
следствие
then
в
with the
отношениях
rest of the
с миром.
world. I will see you in a
До
week's
новых встреч,
time.
дорогие.
Thank you.